I'm Scott Allen Miller, and this is my daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today I've got a great question from Brad at A Brad's Life. He wants to know about whether or not Nicaragua is right for him, and a lot of people have this question, but Brad's situation is totally different than anyone I've ever had to answer for before, but it's not really that unique. It's just unique for people who are asking the question of whether or not Nicaragua is going to be right for him. He's got a number of circumstances, including a fiance, that all play into making this a completely different discussion than we normally have. And I'm excited about this one because I think it's going to be a very different look on whether or not Nicaragua might be right for you for a completely different demographic. So we're going to get to that. We're going to answer Brad's couple set of questions about whether or not he should be looking at moving to Nicaragua with his fiance right after the bump. I love getting to do an analysis of whether or not a place is good for someone or if a job is good for someone or whatever. These kinds of analysis are a lot of fun and valuable, and we get to dive into individual experiences, individual people, and what is right potentially for them. And then it allows other people to extrapolate from that things that, well, you know, how does that apply to you? Does it apply to you? Is your situation different? But so many of the people that, and this is great, right? We have so many people who are looking at coming to Nicaragua, but they're looking at coming because they're retiring or they're empty nesters and they're looking for a slower change of pace of life or whatever. Later in life, it's really rare that we get someone who's more looking at starting up a life and considering Nicaragua for that. So this gives us a very different look on how Nicaragua may play into the lives of a lot of different people who may be watching the show but not asking these questions nearly as often. So let's start with his initial question. Does it make any sense for a 20-something gringo to move to Nicaragua with my fiance? She's going to have to go back and she wants to take me. I'm worried about finances, pure and simple, when in Nicaragua. We love each other. In the U.S., obviously, the opportunities are endless. I then had some follow-up questions because I didn't know what he did for a living or anything like that. And obviously those things matter. If he's a janitor at the local school, then that's going to be very difficult to bring with him down to Nicaragua, right? But depending on what he does, it could be just fine. So the follow-up after I asked him what he does is he said, my career goal is to trade stocks for a living. My current status is no college degree, no debt, $50,000 in savings, lots of life experience on the streets, hustling. All right, so basically he wants to work online. So Brad, this is really important, right? What you're looking to do is be an online knowledge worker. Now, it doesn't matter if you're looking at doing software design or you're looking at stock trading or you're looking at, now he did ask a question a couple days ago and I didn't connect that it was him when I was asking this. He asked if he could trade stocks. He didn't say that was his job. It could just be a hobby or something he just wants to do on the side. Lots of people trade stocks here and there, and just because you do it with low volume doesn't imply that you're a trader by trade. And this is something I'm a little bit familiar with. My mother was a professional stock trader later in life. So, and I worked on Wall Street for a large portion of my career, so I've had a lot of exposure to this on the professional side throughout my life. So, in looking at this, you're into the same category as anyone who is kind of in an entrepreneurial mode in the United States where you own your own business or that you're working in a purely online job. So for those who don't know, if you're trading stocks, you don't have an office to trade stocks. You don't go get a place. If you're working on Wall Street for a major bank, yes, they're going to give you trading floor space. That's different, and people who do that know they have to be on Wall Street. They have to be in Tribeca. They have to be in Houston for the commodities floor, things like that. They have to be directly with the systems, and those people can't move anywhere. They can't even move to New Jersey, let alone leave New York City, right? Let alone work online. But when you're talking about normal stock traders, people who are working from home anyway, then you can work from anywhere. So that's the first piece, is you're looking at being a work from home 100% worker, and that tells us the most important things that we need to know. So let's look at a few things. One, you have a fiance who has to return to Nicaragua. I'm assuming from the context that she's Nicaraguan, she has to move back, you're living in the United States currently, and that she's going to be able to work here, live here, has family and connections, and is going to be a really great resource for you for a number of reasons. So let's start with that. So because you have a fiance here, she's going to make life in Nicaragua much easier for you, much more rapid for acclimation than a normal person would have. Most people when moving down have a lot of learning curve in Nicaragua because they don't have any local resources. They don't have anyone to help them. They don't have anyone for those things. Like that stuff gets really tough And I'm not saying that people shouldn't come down. We all do. You get over it and you get to know people and you make friends, and then everything gets really easy, the same as anywhere. You have a huge advantage here. And it's not just a friend that's going to help you out and hopefully you stay close. This is your fiance, right? So you're going to get married. You're going to be connected with her family, and maybe they have some resources. At least they know people, and at least they'll know areas. Like, they've, one way or another, they're going to be able to help you, even if it's just avoiding gringo prices and helping you navigate some things. And you always have a translator to go with you, because as your spouse, she'll be able to go with you to immigration and things like that and deal with that. She'll be able to talk to a lawyer for you. You won't have to have English services for everything, which costs a lot more. So you have this huge leg up on Nicaraguan life right out of the gate, by the nature of having a person who is Nicaraguan, who's just there to look out for you because you have shared interest. Second piece, because you're going to be married, presumably around the time that you move down, it doesn't have to be before you move down, but it could be, you're going to have access to the essentially immediate and zero effort, or nearly zero effort, spousal residency. Now, you're not going to be a citizen. You're not going to be allowed to work here under normal circumstances, but you are going to be allowed to remain and buy a car and do anything you want like that without any additional overhead. Now, it's not a big deal because, like I say in a lot of the videos, we come down on tourist visas. We get to stay basically indefinitely, and eventually we move into residency, and you get those things over time one way or another. They will work with you to find a path to residency for you if that's what you're trying to do. So that's not a huge thing, but it simplifies the process, it expedites the process, and you're going to just likely have that residencia in your first few months or right after, whenever you get married, and you'll never have to worry about that again. It'll just be done. It'll be essentially permanent. The rest of us have to renew every so often. As long as you're still married, you'll just be here. So a bunch of that, just mechanisms, the logistics of moving to Nicaragua, you're going to have just like that. So you have this huge leg up on normal people, and that makes Nicaragua extra welcoming when it's already a very welcoming country. So from that perspective, absolutely, you should be giving Nicaragua a try. The other thing I want to say about this, and just from a mindset perspective, I know that from the tone, you have a little bit of apprehension of coming to Nicaragua. And I'm going to go into a bunch of stuff as to why you shouldn't, from a purely this is a good move for you perspective. Like, you may have the ultimate slam dunk in why to come to Nicaragua. So we're going to get to that. But before that, let's assume that Nicaragua wasn't a slam dunk. Let's say you didn't have a fiance, you weren't going to get a residencia, you did not have a job that made this really easy, but you were interested in Nicaragua, and it was enough of an interest that you wanted to know if you could make it go. Not be a slam dunk, not be perfect, but could you survive? And we answered this, and you said, I think I could. One of the most important things is, as long as you have enough money, access to enough resources to buy a plane ticket home, which is about $100, in some cases less. You can take Spirit out of Managua, and you're going to the United States, right? You said gringo. So not very far. It's not very expensive. I flew all the way to New York for $106, right? We're not talking about a big investment. As long as you can get on a plane home, who cares if you can make it or not? Come down and try it out. It's zero risk, or all but zero risk. Right now, okay, so if you put in 2 years in Nicaragua instead of 2 years in the U.S., and during that time in the U.S., oh, you did well, and you grew, and you came to Nicaragua and it was a struggle, and it didn't, okay, yeah, there's some lost opportunity, potentially. But you really don't have any risk of like, well, what if Nicaragua doesn't work out for you? Well, what if it doesn't? Just hop on a plane home. No problem, right? It's basically, you're just taking a really simple vacation, a very low cost, very low effort, very low time involvement vacation, and deciding not to go home anytime soon until you're done with the vacation. And if things go well, you never leave. But if things do go wrong, you just go back home. It's kind of like, well, I want to go try out a McDonald's down the street. I don't know if I'm going to like it there. Okay. For most of us, I would say just go ahead and go to the McDonald's. And if you decide you don't like it, leave. It's that simple. And that's why we're not afraid of trying out a new restaurant. The worst case that's going to happen is we're going to spend the amount of money on the food we ordered. We're going to try that food, or it may never arrive, as the case may be in some of my videos. And then if we don't like it, we'll just go somewhere else. We know what the maximum cost is, and it's the amount of time we spend there and the amount of the food we order. So how much is your risk to move to Nicaragua? Well, start by flying down. That's about $100, $150. You got a taxi ride in there. You're going to have to find a place to live, but you got to find a place to live in the United States anyway. Everything is cheaper here. So really, once you compare it to the U.S. cost, you actually aren't taking any risk at all, other than just not being in the U.S. to be next to people. But who are you next to in the United States? We don't know. And And that's it. So the idea that you actually have to have a fear of coming to Nicaragua to overcome is the first mistake. That's not actually a thing. In reality, it should be that coming to a country like Nicaragua, and there's many like this in this regard, it is so low barrier, it is so low risk, there's nothing to worry about because you can always return home. If you were making a permanent change and you couldn't go back to your home country, well then, yes, the move to a new country is very scary because you're locked in. You don't have a way home, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about, South American immigrants who are working their way through Central America and getting coyotes to take them over into the United States and declaring asylum and accepting the limitations of asylum and being trapped in the United States for a number of years. That requires a lot of faith in where they're going and a lot of fear of where they're coming from. That's a very strong commitment, and they're stuck. You are not stuck. You're not claiming asylum in Nicaragua. You're not coming here because of hardship in the United States. You're coming here because of some combination of opportunity or love. That's great, but you're voluntary. At any moment, you can just pack up and go back. So the worst case scenario is that you come down, discover that it doesn't work. You and your fiance split up, heaven forbid, and you don't like Nicaragua, and that doesn't work out for you, and everything falls apart. And now you just fly back home, and you're right back to either no worse than where you started, or possibly still a little bit better than where you started, and you're back in the U.S., no harm, no foul. That's the worst case scenario. We're not anticipating any of those things. I'm pretty certain you're going to come down and go, wow, Nicaragua was way better than I was imagining. And hopefully things work out great with your fiance and you get married, you have a wonderful life together, and you get to have that here in Nicaragua. And of course, once you're married and you spend a bit of time married, you potentially start to have options to bring her back to the United States permanently should you end up in a situation where you guys end up together, but you just don't find that Nicaragua is working for you. You probably, not guaranteed because you're American, but there's a good chance that you'll have an eventual path back to the United States for both of you as a couple. But I think when you hear all the reasons that Nicaragua makes sense for you, that you're going to start to think, wow, I'm never going to want to go back to the US, not realistically. But I want to make sure you have this mindset. It is not a scary thing to give this a try. It is not a dangerous thing. You are not taking risks. If anything, you are reducing risks by doing this. And now let's get into why this is. The question shouldn't be, can I make Nicaragua work? The question should be, how could I reasonably consider doing the life that I want to have anywhere except Nicaragua, even if you didn't have a Nicaraguan fiance? The fact that you have a Nicaraguan fiance is just icing on a really delicious existing Nicaraguan cake. So let's get to that. When you're working from home as a professional, one of the first things you do in all cases is start to look for low-cost locations. Now, if you live in the United States, you live in New York City, one of the highest cost locations, and suddenly you're working from home full time. Unless you're willing to pay a premium just because you really want to live in a high-cost location, which many people in New York City do, one of the best things you can do for your life is to move to a lower cost location. By moving to a low cost location, it reduces your risk while maximizing your profits. The two go together, and it's really important to think this way, and it's a basic tenet of business or investing. So if you're looking at trading stocks, this should hit you immediately as being super important. If you are going to live, let's say in New York City or San Francisco, and you're going to trade stocks, living in those cities gives you no advantage. If anything, it reduces your advantage by making life more difficult. You spend more time focused on trying to get groceries or going out to dinner or trying to put food on the table, paying your bills, dealing with supers and stuff like that, than you would in a simpler, lower cost location. If you were to move to, say, a small town outside of Des Moines, Iowa, you could live much more cheaply, which means you have a greater amount of money to be investing via your trading enterprise. You could be putting that money aside somewhere. You'd simply have more buffer in case something went wrong with your trading and you couldn't make rent. Money flowing out in overhead is one of the most dangerous things for a business. And as a trader, you are essentially your own business. And it's important to think that way, not only thinking financially of trading in a logical way, but of yourself, because your entire existence is a small business and trading is your product. So you want to be, as a business owner, in the lowest possible location. Imagine if you were your own employee, which you are, would you pay a premium to put yourself in New York City or any major expensive location just for the sake of having you there? There's no advantage to it, and it makes everything more risky. You're more likely to not show up to work on time. You're not as likely to work a full day or be as productive because life has more overhead. Well, no, as an employer, you would absolutely not do that. And as a large employer, that would violate fiduciary responsibility unless you had some reason that that location actually made a difference larger than the negatives that it incurs. So one of the most important things you're going to be doing in becoming a young professional who's going to hustle and work from home is you have to get to a low-cost location, even within the United States. But obviously that means that getting out of the United States is absolutely necessary to doing the best possible job. Being inside the United States is insane unless you have a driving reason to do so. So from a business perspective, and as a business owner, these are things that we have conversations about. We can't ethically put workers in the United States, especially not in major cities, unless they are servicing locations that require them to be there physically. Otherwise, it's insane because we are literally donating tons of money to a person that's doing no good because it's all leaving in overhead. It's all in cost of living. It's all going out in rent and food. It's not helping them. It's not helping the business. It's not helping our customers. Nobody wins. Nobody. So as a business owner, your thought process should be, how do I get my employee, in this case yourself, to the most logical possible location, given certain constraints of where you're allowed to live, where you can still trade from, that the internet's good enough, where you're, there's things you have to consider. But in general, low cost is one of the most important factors from the employer side. From the employee side, also you also have to consider places that you like, that you'll be happy, and a lot of other things, and safe and all that. So that's important too. But purely from this is your business side, you want to push yourself to move someplace that's extremely cost effective. And where are the most cost effective places in the Western Hemisphere? And you do need to be in the Western Hemisphere generally if you're going to be trading. There's a lot of reasons, like the speed of the internet, the time of day, things like that are important. Well, your two main contenders are Nicaragua and Colombia. Basically, nothing's going to come close to these two in cost of living. Of course, Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala are all reasonable cost of living. Mexico's not terrible. Panama's not terrible. Costa Rica gets pretty expensive. Venezuela could be doable. Colombia's doable. Peru is doable. Bolivia. You have a number of options, but Colombia is definitely the cheapest in South America, and Nicaragua is definitely the cheapest in North America. And if you ever need to go back and forth to the United States, no one's going to come close to Nicaragua in overall cost of flights because it's just so close and so cheap. It uses so little fuel to go between the two countries. So from a cost of living perspective alone, Nicaragua gives you the greatest degree of safety. If you're trying to be conservative and you want to start your trading business, then nothing is going to be smarter than starting in Nicaragua, because from a financial perspective, you need less money to live, and that gives you more money to invest, which means you could make much more money because the amount you can make is based on two things: the amount of money you have to trade with and the quality of those trades. Well, you can't change the quality of trades based on where you live, but you can change how much money you're able to trade with, not just your upfront amount of money to trade with, but every single month, because your cost of living is lower. So let's just say you live in New York City, which is an extreme example, and you have to pay, let's say, $3,000 a month in rent and another $2,000 a month in food. That's $5,000 that you can't use to trade every single month, and you have to generate that. So your business makes enough money and you take $5,000 off the top of that every month to cover cost of living expenses. And that's not even getting to all the little ancillary things. That's just the big ones. Now you come to Nicaragua and do the same thing. How much is your rent going to be? Well, here it may be $200 or $300. We're going to say $300. That would be a much nicer, bigger place than you would get in New York City for $3,000. But we're going to say you're going to spend $300, and how much you're going to spend on food? We're going to say $200. That's actually on the low side. But just to make the numbers really easy, now you're taking $500 off the top every month instead of $5,000. 1/10 the price. Now, we're using Nicaragua as the cheapest possible place. New York City is the most expensive possible. But if you take it to a national level, the United States is the most expensive, and Nicaragua is the cheapest. So basically, the example still holds up. Now, are you going to actually drop 90% of your monthly cost? Probably not. But are you going to drop a lot? Yes. 50%, 60%, 70%. Those are very realistic. So in that extreme example, that's $4,500 every month that gets added to your investment pool that wouldn't be added to it if you were not living in Nicaragua. Now, you could live in Honduras and make it $4,400, right? You could be really close. But Nicaragua is going to give you the most extreme leveraging of the financial assets that you have. And on one side, that means more profits. But on the other side, it also represents safety. Your ability to make more profits is also what protects you from, for example, financial ruin, bad trades that lead you into dangerous situations where you can't afford to make your rent or whatever. You're so much more likely to be able to have a backup plan when it only takes $900 to be able to support yourself and your fiance for a month. You may not like living on that, but if you had to go down to $800 a month and that's all the money you had in the world, you could make it month to month living on that, honestly, without a problem. If you're in New York City, you could not. You would starve to death. You'd be homeless. You'd be on the street. You would not be able to afford food for one person, let alone two. So it'd be super dangerous. Plus, in Nicaragua, your fiance can work. She can't work in the United States. So while she probably is going to not have a huge high income job, but she might, she's been living in the United States. So chances are her ability to get a job in Nicaragua are quite high. A lot of people don't think about this, but Nicaraguans who return from the United States generally have quite good English. And if you speak English pretty well, there are so many jobs in Nicaragua. They are hungry for English speakers because there are so few of them here. That basically guarantees you at least a decent job, enough to definitely support both of you, and almost certainly enough to put at least one of you, if not both of you, into lower middle class. That's not so bad as a fallback plan, and that's if you're not working at all. That's with you with zero income, right? Which is an extreme situation. As an American, you can find some amount of work, maybe teaching English online, maybe getting a professional job where you're doing engineering or you're doing trading or you're doing advisement, or who knows, you're doing some, you could enter any field that you work remotely. You have, the world is your oyster, because you're in a low cost of living area with great internet and easy access to infrastructure and power and all those things that you need at the lowest possible cost. Nothing gives you more protection. So that very thought of, but Nicaragua feels kind of scary, would this make sense for me? It's really the opposite. If you were targeting what is the absolute most logical, most business focused, most trying to make the safest decision for your future, the first thing you would do is not ask me if it's a good place. You'd already be on the plane here, because every day you're not here, you're at more risk. You're bleeding more money than you need, unless you have some current job that you're going to have to give up. Then it's a matter of timing on things. But as long as you are going to be trading, as long as you're moving into that mode of your life, you don't want to spend a single day doing that in the United States. You want to do that from Nicaragua as fast as you can, because the sooner you get here, the sooner you start having more money to leverage, more protections. I understand you're probably basing things on when your fiance needs to leave, and that's fine. But from a purely business logic standpoint, you want to be here as soon as possible. And I know that's not at all what people are expecting. You're expecting, well, we can make it work. It shouldn't be so bad. No. This is what smart business looks like. In the hedge fund world, we use a term called what good looks like. And that's where we sit down. Most people come from, well, here's where we are. How do we improve? And that's a really good thing to do. And people should do that all the time, on a personal level, on a professional level. Great. I live like this. How do I live better tomorrow? Great. But there's another tool, and it's very important. It's called what good looks like. And instead of starting from where you are and getting better, start at, well, if I didn't start where I was, what would the perfect scenario? How do I define the best case scenario? And you still want to be within reason, right? Well, I'm a trillionaire and I live in space on my personal floating center. No. But what does good look like for you in your world? Well, it's living in a safe location that gives you the ultimate ability to trade and do the jobs you want to do. It offers you the lowest friction ways to live there, and you want to be able to pay as little into your life until you want to buy luxuries. That's fine, but you want to be at the least risk of having suddenly large bills that may hurt your business or put you out of business because you aren't able to maintain enough liquidity to trade. Well, if we were to say, okay, that's what good looks like, these are the factors that matter for you and your fiance and your lives together, and then said, where would the best place be to do all those things, ignoring your fiance's citizenship or where she needs to go? Just what does good look like for you as a trader? The answer is literally Nicaragua. That is where you would start as the best thing for all those questions. All of them. Not just the best combination. It's actually the best of all of them individually, and then obviously cumulatively. it's a slam dunk for you from a business perspective. Then add in that your fiance already has her citizenship here, that you'll get automatic residency more or less once you get married here, that it's close and really convenient from the country that you're coming from, that it's really cheap to go back and forth, that you can just drive over a border if you feel like to go to a neighboring country and work from there should anything ever happen that makes you have to leave the country. Like, your number of protections and safety from being here compared to other places is so extreme. There's nothing that's going to come close to Nicaragua as being what good looks like for you. You have lucked out to such a degree by having the access to the market, knowing about it, a fiance who's from there who already has to go back, that you're doing a job that fits perfectly with. Like, you have the absolute perfect scenario for Nicaragua to meet every one of your needs flawlessly. Now, of course, there's lots of things that are soft and we can't define, right? Oh, are you going to like the food? Are you going to like the weather? Do you like the way that people drive? Do you like the type of music that people listen to? Do you like things like that? Those are going to be the big questions. Are you going to enjoy life in Nicaragua? We can't answer that, right? We can give you ideas of what it's like. We can tell you ways that you may want to adjust your life to take best advantage of it. We can tell you what's good about it, what we like. But ultimately, it's going to come down to what food you like, what events you like, the things you like doing with your life. But beyond that, all the hard requirements, Nicaragua is the best option for you. So that alone is fantastic. Now, as an American, it's also important to note that by living in Nicaragua, assuming full time, that's above 335 days of the year, 330 days of the year, that you're going to be here or somewhere else abroad from the United States. It's complicated. I'm not going to go into the details of the tax structure, but assuming that you're meeting those requirements of being foreign earned income, which you should, then your salary, any amount of salary that you pay yourself, and you probably want to form a corporation and actually pay yourself a salary, but that's, you got to talk to your lawyers, you got to talk to your accountants and make sure you're set up correctly in the United States and have all those ducks in a row, of course, because you are still going to be an American citizen. You're still going to be earning your money in the United States. You need to do as much as you can to protect that money and still have it be able to flow to you. Any amount of that is coming as salary, which I understand as a trader may not be the big percentage it is for normal people and normal businesses, but it may be, depending. You're still going to have capital gains and all the normal business taxes. Those things are not going to go away. They're going to stay exactly the same. There's not going to be any penalty, but you're not going to get a bonus either. It's just, it is what it is, and the United States hasn't changed. And you weren't expecting it to change, I don't think. But any amount that you take as salary, this is what's really important, whether it's from your trading business or whether that business invests in something else and you're getting paid because you're working with that, or you start a separate business, or you take a job working for someone. What if your trading doesn't work, or it does work, but it doesn't pay the bills, and so you need to work online as well? Whatever. Any amount of money that you're bringing in as salary is foreign earned income to the United States. This won't count for your first year, but once you've been here for a year, then anything that you're making through that, you get a discount of earnings of $120,000 a year. And that goes up every year, but currently it's at $120,000. So anything that you're earning in that envelope of $120,000 per year or less, which is an insane amount of money here in Nicaragua. If you're making $10,000 a month, bring home income, that puts you into the absolute upper echelons of you're not in middle class anymore. You're in upper class. You can do nearly anything. You're driving baller cars around. You're living in a mansion. You have a beach house on top of it. For real, you're paying cash for everything. You have people to do everything for you. You're living in giant, amazing places. Like, seriously, $10,000 a month is a lot of money here. And most people who are making $10,000 a month here are paying taxes on it. But you'd be tax-free up to that $10,000 a month, which makes your money go even farther yet than someone here who is earning that. So you'd be really well into the 1%er category or higher, easily higher here in country. And then you only start paying taxes or income tax portions. You do pay some really, really minor taxes on that first bit, tiny amounts of money you'll never notice. But above 120,000, then you start paying your U.S. taxes as normal. But that first 120,000 is always going to be on major discount where you just don't pay any taxes. So your actual ability to bring in money from your own activities here is better as an American worker than it is in the United States. You literally get more money by being in Nicaragua, in addition to everything costing so much less. And those things go really far to protect you. Your ability to protect yourself and your family, to provide for them, and to be able to live comfortably and safely are so much better in Nicaragua. Orders of magnitude, literally orders of magnitude better in Nicaragua than in the United States. Every single thing is going to be so much better because of your scenario. There's people that should stay in the United States. There's people that it doesn't give this advantage to. You're in a unique situation where everything has come together to be absolutely perfect. Now, beyond the hard numbers, there's some other factors that people really don't think about. But when you're in business, this stuff can make a big difference. Of course, it's stuff that makes difference to normal people who aren't in business, but they're not looking at it from a financial perspective. And if you're looking at being a trader, then this could be really important for you. And that is, if you live in a New York City, Dallas, just about anything, you're going to almost certainly be spending a lot of your time dealing with the logistics of life. You need to get a air conditioner fixed, you have to call someone, or you have to do it yourself. You want to go to the market, you got to go out and do those things. Everything takes time. It's a lot of effort. And growing up in Western New York, one of the things we always said about people who live in New York City is they're super busy doing nothing. They spend all of their time running around dealing with the logistics of the city. And I've lived in New York City, and I can attest to this. They spend so much time commuting and going down the sidewalk and people in their way and just all these things. And it uses up so much of their life. And that energy, that time, all has to come from somewhere. Now, most New Yorkers end up taking it from their personal lives, but in the end of the day, that impacts their ability to work. But as a trader, one way or another, your personal life is your working life. So when you have that overhead, it is coming out of your ability to trade effectively. Maybe it lowers the number of hours you can spend trading, or maybe it lowers the quality of your trading, or both. No matter what, you're the one who is impacted by those things. So if you can reduce that effort, that's really important. And, that's one of the reasons that engineering departments like the one I worked for on Wall Street moved 20,000 people from New York City to Dallas. Not only was the cost of living lower, not only were the taxes lower for the business, but the amount of time that people spent commuting went down considerably. People were averaging 45 minutes to an hour in the New York City area, even though we weren't downtown that often. And in Texas, most of it was 5 to 10 minutes. And I got higher over time, but a lot of us were able to afford really nice apartments right across the street from the office rather than having to be really far away and barely being able to afford anything at all. It changed a lot of factors for a lot of people. But by being in those convenient areas in Dallas, it was really quick to go to the market. It was quick to go to a grocery store, quick to go to restaurants, quick to go to the office. So the amount of time we had to put into work or relaxing after work was much better. And something that regular workers don't tend to think about. Maybe they do, but not generally. But good employers, which you need to be for yourself, do need to think about is that maximizing relaxing time, whether it's vacations or the time between shifts when workers are weekends, whatever. You want your workers to have the most possible time to relax because that gives them the best performance when they're actually at work. A lot of companies, that don't know what they're doing, they're going to push people to work super long hours. They're going to make them commute a lot. Then they're exhausted. And what they get is workers who aren't working to their potential. They're neither happy nor effective, not in the long run. When you're working for yourself, you have the possibility to maximize this by really thinking about both sides and saying, oh, you know what? If I only work a time box part of the day, I do my work, I get it done, and then I relax. I'm able to come back refreshed and make good decisions fast in the morning. And that's how I maximize my trading. That's how you maximize your hustle. You can't push too hard or you start to lose. Okay, so all that said, yes, places like Nicaragua it's going to be easier to go to the store. It's easier to drive around in traffic. It's easier to do a lot of those things, especially as you can walk places a lot of the time. That's one thing. But what people don't think about generally is that if you're here and you have this lower cost of living, you have more financial resources, you're earning more money, all these things come together. If you were living in anywhere in the United States and you said, okay, now the time you spend cleaning your house, that is impacting your ability to work. You say, okay, well, that's great. But do you have any idea how much it costs to hire someone to clean a house? Yeah, I can't do that. Millionaires do that, but normal people cannot. And, well, what if you had someone cooking for you? Well, no, that's not realistic. I'm going to order in food, but I can't afford to do that very often. What are you going to do? And you start getting into pre-planned meals. You do all kinds of things trying to mitigate these problems. But when you're living in Nicaragua, you have completely different economics around these things. First of all, getting food delivered pedidos ya over Uber Eats is a fraction of the price. Not only is food less costly as a starting point, but the overhead of the delivery is a fraction as much. And if you can't get the delivery that you want, you can just call a taxi and send them out to get stuff for you. You don't even have to go with them. They will go and pick it up for you and deliver it. Of course, you're going to pay a premium for that, but it's very affordable. Considering how expensive it would be if you're in the United States to just drive yourself to a Denny's and have a small meal that's nothing special. Here, you could send a taxi out to pick up food at a restaurant that doesn't do delivery, have them custom order, have them wait for it, have them do everything for you. It would still cost a fraction of what that Denny's meal would cost in the United States. I'm not saying you should spend your money recklessly just because you're in Nicaragua, but the ability to pay to solve your problems is completely different. Things that in the United States would be absolutely out of the question, unaffordable. You'd have to be making millions or tens of millions of dollars a year to start thinking about having staff and paying for people to take workloads off of your plate. But when you're living in Nicaragua, the idea that you're going to have someone who cleans for you, someone who cooks for you, someone who handles delivery, someone who deals with getting your car fixed. Literally, I had someone take my car to the shop and get it fixed today. And I think, no, that's not it pulling in. I was waiting for that to be a perfect juxtaposition. But my car is in the shop and I didn't have to deal with it. Someone took it, someone oversaw the process, and they'll bring it back when they're done. Those things save me so much time. I have to travel today and I need to get these videos done, and I have my normal work. I've been in meetings much of the day. I have a very tight schedule. I couldn't possibly do these things if I was doing my own cleaning, doing my own cooking, doing my own car repairs, doing my own house repairs, running my own errands, doing all that stuff. But I have people who do a lot of those things for me, and not because it's a luxury. It is, but it's because it makes me able to work so much more. I'm so much more able to focus on making the videos for you guys, on making it to meetings. I know I can get up in the morning and rush into my office, and I know someone will bring me coffee. I know someone will make me breakfast. I know that things will get done at the house, and when food gets delivered, or water, right? We have water delivery or whatever, things like that get delivered to the house. Someone handles that. I don't have to get interrupted. I don't have to leave my office and go deal with just opening doors for people, right? Simple things that normally interrupt your day, and all those things come out of your ability to trade or do whatever work you're looking at doing. You get to focus on working, which makes you more money, which means you can earn more and have a better life, which allows you to have more people, do more things, give you a better life, earn more money. It's a cycle of success that the United States doesn't really have. Of course, if you're making tens of millions of dollars, yes, people talk about, oh, I need a chauffeur, I need a, whatever, have all these jobs. And they say it makes sense because I'm making so much money per hour that having people take these workloads off my plate is critical to my ongoing success. But in the United States, that threshold for that is so high. In most of the world, it's in the middle. If you're in a Mexico or a Panama, you still have to earn quite a bit more. But when you're in Nicaragua, that number comes down significantly. And that's something you have to consider. Most people aren't thinking about how they could very easily take a lot of time off of their plate, make themselves more efficient, and take whatever they're doing for you specifically. You may not do this on day one, of course, but if you have any amount of success with your trading, this is something that could be really significant for you in making you more efficient. And you couldn't do that if you're somewhere else. So Nicaragua comes in time and time again, I think, with just the right answer. So to answer your question, in case it wasn't clear, is Nicaragua the right place for a gringo in their 20s who's looking to move down with his fiance and start a business trading and living in Nicaragua and just start a whole new life with a completely different way of looking at the world? Yeah, this is the perfect answer for you. It's not a good enough. It's not a, I guess it'll work. This is, if we designed the perfect scenario for you, this is it. So I recommend that you come down as quickly as possible. Thanks for writing in and giving the question. That's fantastic. If other people want this kind of analysis for them, absolutely get down in those questions and ask away. And if you'd like to send in a video of you asking questions, that would be amazing. I ask that all the time. I get so few. Please send those in. That would be fantastic. And as always, like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller. And if you would be so kind as to share on social media, tell a friend or family member about the show, get someone new addicted. Every new viewer means so much to us. We're still a very small channel, and it really does help us grow. And thanks everyone who tuned in and watched us on Channel 8 this week on streaming out of Nicaragua. It's always great to do the live shows. I'm recording this hours before I head to the studio, so hopefully it all goes well, and I will see all of you tomorrow. And as always, we put 4 videos up on the screen. If you could click on one of those, that does a lot to help the channel grow.